Hey guys, and welcome to Wrestling Days. So in today's video I've got another pay-per-view poster review, and this is a big one. I know I say that a lot, but I was actually going to do a separate video on this event. So big thanks to Jim Gore for recommending it. A few more shout outs actually before we move on. Don Cameron, really appreciate the support. Leo Figures, thank you very much for watching. And Dylan WWE 619, again, you know, really appreciate it. Thank you very much. So back to the poster. Let's have a look at the poster. Actually, here we go. And it is Starcade 97. This is the 15th Starcade, and as I've said, you know, really important event. This marks the start of things starting to move to WWF's direction. During the Attitude Era, you know, 80 odd weeks WCW was winning the battle of the Monday Night Wars, but this now, just a couple of months after this event, things start turning into the WWF's favour. There's a story about the Attitude Era that gets told again and again, and that story is that a lot of WWF stars went to WCW. They got a lot of power, a lot of control. A lot of the young stars couldn't come through, and what WWF did was they invested in their young stars, and really, you know, the likes of Stone Cold, the likes of The Rock, the likes of Triple H, who, you know, you can't really call as young stars, but they certainly weren't being held back by the likes of Hulk Hogan, you know. So obviously WWF had a lot of talent coming through that they allowed to come through, and so, you know, there was a lot of success felt by WWF as a result of that, whereas WCW, very different, just kept it to a very small pool of people that tended to just, you know, be the main eventers all the time. But there's part of that story that doesn't get told, and that is how WCW continued to shoot themselves in the foot on top of that as well. And I don't think there's a greater example of WCW shooting themselves in the foot than of this pay-per-view. To set the scene, like, the Sting was huge. Early 90s, arguably the biggest wrestler around, right? He was a massive babyface. And it's really interesting to go back and look that when Hulk Hogan joins WCW, Sting's not forgotten about, but he's certainly pushed to one side. There's two pay-per-views immediately following Hulk Hogan joining where Sting's not on the card, and then there's another one where he's losing to Vader, and he's not at the levels that he was before. Obviously Hogan comes in and dominates things, and then you've got obviously the Macho Man that's running around as well. You've got the NWO that's formed. What happens, right, is the NWO start teasing that Sting's going to join them, and Sting basically becomes the Crow, and he's up in the rafters, and there's really a build for about 15 months. Everyone wants to know what Sting's going to do. Is Sting going to be Team WCW like everyone expects? Or has he joined the NWO? Or is he going to join the NWO? Or what's happening? A lot of people were tuning in to Nitro to see what Sting was going to do. He'd appear, you know, he'd be in the rafters, or he'd make a surprise attack, or something would happen with Sting. He was still, you know, a regular face, but he wasn't as active in the ring. He was a lot more in the shadows. This was a different Sting to Surfer Sting, completely different Sting. And so everything was building up towards an answer, and eventually we get Hulk Hogan versus Sting, Starcade 97. The thing about this event, right, is that it's not just Hulk Hogan versus Sting, it's WWF versus WCW. You know, Hulk Hogan represented all this talent that had come over from WWF. Well, Sting was never WWF, so it felt like there was that war that was being raged. Also, it's NWO versus WCW, as well as it being two of the biggest names ever in wrestling against each other. Main events just don't get any bigger. This is dream world. So everything built towards this. So the event is very important, and the poster, I love this poster. Would I be happy to have this on my wall? Absolutely, 100%. Love it. It's retro. It does everything that you need. It says, you know, watch this event because you're going to see Hogan and you're going to see Sting. That's all you need a poster to do. Maybe it's lacking a bit of cutting edge. Maybe it's lacking a bit of why they're fighting. Maybe the background could be a bit more exciting. But as I said, it's got that retro feel. I'd love to have this on my wall. I honestly think it's a great wrestling poster. And I think it does a solid job of selling a pay-per-view. A pay-per-view that really didn't need a great deal of help because of the size of that main event. But this is a very, very cool poster. There's an alternative poster as well. This is the one that's on Wikipedia, so if you change over to that, you can see that it's very different in its style. You've just got really the eyes of Sting, and you've got the image of Hogan at the top, and it's like, you know, Hogan's a colourful guy. He's not, but for this poster they say he is, but his nightmares are in black and white, and then obviously makes out that they're referring to Sting, what with his crow paint. I don't like this poster. This poster, it still does the job of, you know, clearly you can make out it's going to be Hogan against Sting, and I like the line, but it doesn't really ring true. You know, Hogan wasn't colour, Hogan was NWO, which were black and white. But it was, you know, it is, it does a job. But for me, I prefer the retro styling of that poster. The reason, anyway, to wrap this up, the reason that this was a disaster was the match itself. The match itself should have been one of the easiest matches to book, because it literally should have been Hogan, Sting, 15 minutes, Sting gets the victory, and then, you know, we go down a different path. What actually happens is Hogan gets the victory, Hogan gets the 3 count, it's a fast 3 count, and Bret Hart, who has only just joined WCW, don't forget this is like December 97, so really we're not that far removed from the Montreal Screwjob. So Bret Hart's there, and he's not active, he's ringside. I think he was like guest ringside ref. Bret Hart goes, restart the match, that's rubbish, and so they restart the match and Sting picks up the victory, but it was too overbooked. It was a mess, and you know, rather than just give Sting the straight off victory, it made Sting look a little weak, that he couldn't get the job done without Bret Hart's help in restarting the match. And so really they threw it away. As I say, a few months after this, things start to go sour, and not because of this event, but this event certainly didn't help. When you've got an opportunity with one of the biggest matches that people want to see, and you completely mess it up, something's not right. And the reason is because Hogan wasn't happy to lose clean. Hogan had creative control. Hogan, it was in his contract, you know, could have final say on what happened in matches. Hogan appreciated that Sting needed to win. It was right for Sting to win, but he was never going to allow that to happen clean. And it just made a mess of the event, and it made a mess of really WCW ultimately. So, cool poster, retro poster, but it represents an awful, awful main event. A few other matches in this. We had Larry Zbyszko against Eric Bischoff for control of WCW. Might have been nice to have just seen that mentioned somewhere. And then also you've got Kurt Hennig against Diamond Dallas Page for the WCW heavyweight title. Again, doesn't get mentioned. So I do love this poster, but there's no reason why there's not like an undercard mentioned on it either. So it kind of loses marks for me a bit on that. Cool. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, it'd be brilliant if you did, 'cause got loads more of these pay-per-view poster reviews coming, and as well as Mattel figure reviews, toy hunts, Raw reviews, NXT reviews, etc, etc. And also you can follow me on Twitter at Wrestling Days UK. Thanks a lot for watching. Hopefully see you again next time. Bye for now.